MSCs. And the process of MSCs, there are five sources of afferent input to the vomiting center: chemoreceptor trigger zone, vestibular system, motion sickness, especially responsible for motion sickness, chemoreceptor trigger zone, responsible for any kind of chemicals that we take if stimulates the zone or receptor trigger zone, and it will result into vomiting. Basically, they have different types of receptor involved, upon which D2 receptor and 5-HT3 receptor and neuron MK1 receptor. Three receptors play an important role for stimulating chemoreceptor trigger zone. Beside that, it also has an opioid receptor, on which opioid usually stimulates the chemoreceptor trigger zone. Vestibular system, generally via cranial nerve 8, and they are generally found to be stimulating cerebellum through muscarinic M1 and histamine H1 receptors. Irritation of pharynx, gag reflex, fauces tickling to vagus nerve provokes the gag response. Vagus and spinal afferent nerve from the GI tract, which reach a 5-HT3, that is serotonin receptors. Then comes central nervous system to higher center cerebellum, also stimulates the chemoreceptor trigger zone. They were the four different sources, and I think you have gone through this figure. You have gone through this figure. Everybody, there's no difficulty in understanding this figure. Simply, it's trying to show the different pathway involved in stimulation of vomiting center. Vomiting center in fourth ventricle, in the medulla oblongata, there are two centers, and all these pathways ultimately stimulate these two vomiting center and will result the process of vomiting. So from the GI tract directly to the vagus nerve, they stimulate through blood through production of serotonin. They again stimulate the chemoreceptor trigger zone, which contains different types of receptors. Then through the vestibular apparatus, through inner ear, motion sickness, especially ototoxic drug and motion sickness through cerebellum, and through higher central through smell and sight, psychogenic stimuli will also result into vomiting. These are the basic mechanism of stimulating vomiting centers. So basically, as an emetic drug, any substance that stimulates the chemoreceptor trigger zone will obviously result, or nucleus tractus solitaris will obviously result into stimulation of vomiting center and will result MSS. On which we have two important drugs. Number one, apomorphine. They stimulate chemoreceptor trigger zones. Number second was, the most important was ipecacuanha. These are generally used in a therapeutic purpose. So apomorphine being analog of morphine, being not used nowadays, so it has been replaced by most selective and effective drug called, which stimulates both peripheral and central. Peripheral means GI system, and central to the chemoreceptor trigger zone, which is called ipecacuanha. So apomorphine stimulates D2 receptor present in the CTZ, IMNSA, onset of 50 minutes. Oral should not be given. So it generally results into respiratory depression. Ipecacuanha syrup Ipecac contains M18. Please remember, contains M18. You can write M18 in case of ipecacuanha also in your drug classification. So it is less dependent and safer compared to apomorphine. So since they are peripherally and centrally acting, both centrally and peripherally acting, it irritates the gastric mucosa and also stimulates CTZ. Mustard and sodium chloride are also found to produce emesis, and these are the basic disadvantages and contraindication of MH6. So during aspiration of gastric content, during ingested poison, CNS stimulant poisonings, petroleum poisoning, and in an unconscious patient, these are not given or not used. And in case of morphine and phenytoin poisoning also, the drug fails to produce vomiting. So these were the disadvantages. Now comes the drugs for, so I'm on record. Drug. Is it on record? Okay. So whoever out of the class, please are requested to join the class again. Okay, let me continue. Now, therapy of vomiting, antiemetics. Drug that prevents vomiting, antiemetics. So again, before going to antiemetic, vomiting, how nausea is a sensation. It's a sensation where vomiting is a physiological act of regurgitation of stomach content. So nausea is a sensation of vomiting that produces. So before, everybody has this experience of vomiting and nausea. I think before we vomit, we have a sensation called nausea, which leads us to the vomiting. So vomiting centers, two centers in the brain responsible for vomiting, located lateral reticular formation of the medulla. So vomiting center, final common pathway, receives impulse from both CTZ and nucleus tractus solitary through vestibular apparatus, through higher receptors, and through structures including GIT. Same figure. Again, please let me revise. As a pharmacological point of view, we have to remember the neurotransmitters and receptors involved. So basically, serotonin 3 and 4, 5-HT3 and 4, dopamine, especially D2 receptors, both in GI and in chemoreceptor trigger zone. Then we have opioids and cannabinoid receptors and histaminic receptors here, histaminic receptors and muscarinic receptors. Generally, from here also, serotonin, dopamine, muscarine, histamine, neurokinin receptors. Please remember all these kinds of receptors, because when will be talking about drug classification, all the receptors, all the drugs are basically antagonist and agonist to those receptors. So as a classification, number one, we have antihistaminics. Antihistaminics, H1 antihistaminics. There are two kinds of histamine receptors. H2 for production of acids, whereas H1 is for emesis and for allergic reactions. So H1 is present in the chemoreceptor trigger zone or nucleus tractus solitarius will result into stimulation of vomiting center, which results into vomiting. So any drug that are antagonist or blocks the H1 receptor will inhibit the vomiting. So generally, in this case, we know that antihistaminics, there are two classes of antihistaminics, first generation and second generation. Please recall it as an antihistaminic, first generation and second generation. First generation being highly sedative was replaced by second generation as an anti-allergic drug, an anti-allergic, especially anti-allergic drugs, isn't it? So, but in case of MSCs, basically first generation antihistaminics are used and second generation are not used, because most of the first generation antihistaminics have the property of inhibiting histamine H1 as well as anticholinergic property. Please recall it. They also have an anticholinergic property. That's where they have a effect of sedation. H1 antihistaminics first generation, they have sedatives. There is into sedation due to the anticholinergic property. Anticholinergic property. That's why they were not used as an anti-allergic beings, highly sedative. But in case of MSCs, I think first generation are superior than second generation, because they also have anti H1 antihistaminic property, as well as they also have a sedative property, and which is very helpful for the treatment of MSCs. Basically, in case of motion sickness, not other than motion sickness, they are given H1 antihistaminic. So drugs: promethazine, meclizine, cyclizine, diphenhydramine, and cinnarizine. So basically, promethazine are used as a drug for the motion sickness. So as an anticholinergic, we have prototype drug called hyoscine or scopolamine. Anticholinergic, hyoscine or scopolamine. As neuroleptics, we have chlorperazine, chlorpromazine, and haloperidol. Neuroleptics are also drug which are used as an antipsychotics. Later on, during our central nervous system classes, during antipsychotic, we have to again discuss all the drugs in the treatment of psychosis, since they can neuroleptics, they also inhibit the D2 type of receptor in the chemoreceptor zone. They also show the property of antiemetics. So they are classified as an antiemetics, also neuroleptics, under which haloperidol prochlorperazine. Prochlorperazine is mostly used as an antiemetics. Now there are another group of drug called prokinetic. These drugs generally increases the gastric emptying or hastens the gastric process, which ultimately are helpful for prevention of emesis. So metoclopramide and bromoporidone are available drugs. Basically, metoclopramide are used with compared to domeperidone. Metoclopramide, and we have another drug classification group called 5-HT3 antagonist. That means serotonin her type of receptor antagonist, under which we have ondansetron, granisetron, and ramosetron. That is ramosetron. So serotonin antagonist, 5-HT3 receptor antagonist. There ondansetron, basically mostly used drug is ondansetron. Then we also have granisetron and other drugs in this group. And we have another newly discovered drug called neurokinin receptor 1 antagonist, which is called aprepitant. Please go through it. Aprepitant and fosaprepitant. Fosaprepitant. P and fosaprepitant. Aprepitant. Two drugs available. And as an adjuvant drug, different other drugs can also be used as an adjuvant antiemetics like benzodiazepines, which is sedative hypnotics, dexamethasone, anti-inflammatory corticosteroids, and dronabinol, which is a cannabinol group of drug. They can be are also used in combination with other antiemetics drug as an adjuvant antiemetics. These are the classification of drugs used as an antiemetics. So let me start with metoclopramide. It's a D2 antagonism mechanism. See mechanism. It's a D2 antagonist in the chemoreceptor trigger zone. Now go through. Now please recall the chemoreceptor trigger zone. There were different types of receptor upon which dopamine also plays an important role. It has a D2 type of receptor, and agonism to that D2 receptor in the chemoreceptor trigger zone will stimulate the vomiting center. So any compounds or drug that are antagonist to those D2 receptor in the CTZ chemoreceptor trigger, since we also know that it has already been discussed that chemoreceptor trigger zone is devoid or is out of the blood-brain barrier. So any chemical that stimulate that inhibits the D2 receptor in the dopamine 2 type of, which is an inhibitory type of receptor in the chemoreceptor trigger zone will inhibit the MSS. That is basic mechanism action of metoclopramide. It is also called prokinetic. That is the agent that increases the GI motility. So let me discuss something about the role of dopamine in the GI tract. See, dopamine, they have a inhibitory transmitter in the GIT. It delays gastric emptying. Since D2 is an inhibitory type, dopamine acts on a D2 receptor in the GI. They delay the gastric emptying when the food is present in the stomach due to gastric dilation. And they also lowers the esophageal sphincter. They relax the lower esophageal sphincter, which results into obviously nausea and vomiting due to inhibition of gastric emptying. So metoclopramide, by blocking the dopamine receptor, hastens the gastric emptying. They increases the peristalsis by through in hastening or increasing the gastric emptying and increases the lower esophageal tone of lower esophageal sphincter, which ultimately prevents the vomiting. But this is not the primary mechanism of action of metoclopramide as an antiemetic. It's a side effect, so it is also an effect that is helpful to produce the antiemetic effect. But this is not the primary mechanism of action. The primary mechanism of action of metoclopramide as an antiemetic is to D2 antagonism in especially in chemoreceptor triggers. So it has higher effect on G2 antagonism and CTZ compared to GI. So generally they act through central effect, not through peripheral effect. That is the so basic mechanism. Let us go through mechanism of metoclopramide. D2 antagonism, especially in the chemoreceptor trigger zone. 5-HT3 agonism in the GIT. The GIT has an enteric nervous system, and in the enteric nervous system, there is an important role of 5-HT4 serotonin type of receptors through the enterochromography. Release of I think acetylcholine will stimulate the 5-HT4, the cholinergic receptors, they are stimulated by the serotonin, which contains 5-HT4 type of receptors, and stimulation of those fibers by the 5 serotonin on this 5-HT or 5-hydroxytryptamine 4 type of receptor will uh, produce more acetylcholine, and thus what they do, they inhibit the MSH process. So agonism, in this case we have agonism 5-HT3 4 type of receptor agonism, whereas 5-HT3 type of receptor antagonism, especially in the nucleus tractus solitaris and CTZ. These are the basic mechanism of metoclopramide. Three types of mechanism. Number one, D2 antagonism, D2 receptor antagonism, serotonin, third type of receptor antagonism, and serotonin, four types of receptor agonism. Please remember agonism. So as a pharmacokinetic, they can be given through, they are given through oral route. They undergo sulfation and glucuronidation conjugation by the liver, and they are excreted principally in the urine. The half-life is up to 4 to 6 hours. Peak plasma concentration occurs within 1 hour after single oral dose, and the duration of action is up to 1 to 2 hours. So they also have a cholinomimetic action, act peripherally in the GIT through cholinomimetic by increasing the level of acetylcholine and to enhance the acetylcholine release from the myelinic neurons. This is also known as cholinomimetic action of metoclopramide. At high dose, they block three type of receptors: serotonin, third type 5-HT3 is also known as serotonin, 5-hydroxytryptamine, serotonin, third type of receptor present in the GIT and in the central nerve, that chemoreceptor triggers and nucleus tractus solitaris. So they are rapidly absorbed orally. They crosses the blood-brain barrier. They also crosses the placental barrier, and they are secreted in the milk. So as a use, any vomiting conditions like post-operative vomitings, drug-induced vomiting like morphine, prednisone, opioid due to stimulation of opioid receptor in the chemoreceptor will result into MSH. So while patients are given morphine concurrently, antiemetic metoclopramide are also prescribed to prevent the vomiting as a side effect of the morphines and pethidine. Disease associated like migraine, which results into vomiting. In this case, also the metoclopramide are very much useful and before chemotherapy, but it should not be used in morning sickness. See, it should not be used in morning sickness except when not controlled by other measures, since they crosses the placental barrier and blood-brain barrier. They should not be given in morning except when other controlled measures are not useful. So to accelerate the gastric emptying before induction of anesthesia for the emergency surgery, to assist the passage of tubes, example in case of endoscopy in duodenum, these kinds of drug, because they result into gastric dilation, so it can be helpful in this passage of tubes also. So in case of GERD, gastroesophageal reflex disorder and dyspepsia, they are only given for symptomatic relief, not for the treatment or cure of the disease. They are only helpful as a symptomatic relief in these two cases. These are the basic use of metoclopramide as an antiemetic. Any emetic conditions except in motion sickness like post-operative drug-induced disease-associated chemotherapy associated, in case of endoscopy or accelerate the gastric emptying before surgery and before induction of anesthesia in case of GERD and dyspepsia for a symptomatic relief. These are the basic use of anti-emetic drugs. So adverse effect, they result into extrapyramidal effects like Parkinsonism-like effect, galactorrhea, gynecomastia are also seen by the use of this drug. Whereas since they crosses the blood-brain barrier and they inhibit the D2 type of receptor, which is an inhibitory type of receptor. So inhibition of this D2 receptor in a central nervous system will inhibit the central nervous system and will show the symptoms like sedation, dizziness, diarrhea through the GI tract, and loose stool due to inhibition of the D2 type of receptor in that GI tract. And also Parkinsonism-like effect due to the extrapyramidal effect of the metoclopramide. Since Parkinsonism is a disease associated with dopamine, low level of dopamine, and the drug metoclopramide, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, it reaches the central nervous system, and also antagonizes the D2 receptor in a dopaminergic fiber, especially in the substantia nigra. So inhibition of those dopaminergic pathway will result into a Parkinsonism-like effect. This is the effects of, and D2 receptor is also responsible for production of prolactins, milk secretion, and gynecomastia. So Antagonism also shows these kinds of adverse effect. It's very simple. You have to remember D2 effect on central nervous system and effect on GI tract as an adverse effect. So another one is domperidone. Domperidone is a specific D2 receptor antagonist. It does not have any effect on serotonin and other receptors. Specifically, they are D2 receptor antagonist. In contrast to metoclopramide, they predominantly antagonize the dopamine receptor only, D2 receptor only. It does not readily crosses the blood-brain barrier. See here difference. It does not crosses the blood-brain barrier to cause extra pyramidal side effects like Parkinsonism-like effect, like dyskinesia and other kinds of effect. So they are safe in those conditions. They do not have extra pyramidal side effects, and they do not does not appear to have any significant effect on lower gastrointestinal motility. So they are specific inhibitors of D2 receptor in the chemoreceptor triggers, and they are centrally acting antiemetics. They are centrally acting antiemetics. They inhibit the D2 receptor in the chemoreceptor trigger zone only. They do not. They have very less effect on gastrointestinal motility, but they are low efficacy. They have very low efficacy compared to compared to metoclopramide. These are the difference between domperidone and metoclopramide. Since they lie on same group, they have similar mechanism of action, but domperidone being more specific to D2 receptors and only which is present in the chemoreceptor trigger zone. They do not have peripheral action. They only have, in a simple nutshell, we can say that domperidone has a central action, whereas metoclopramide has both central as well as peripheral action. But central action is the major mechanism action of metoclopramide compared to peripheral action, whereas domperidone only has a central action that they inhibit the D2 receptor in the chemoreceptor trigger zone only. And another important difference is that metoclopramide being lipid soluble and they have property of crossing the blood-brain barrier and placental barrier, whereas domperidone being more safer compared to metoclopramide because they do not cross the blood-brain barrier and do not show the extrapyramidal side effects like sedation and Parkinsonism-like effects are very less seen compared to metoclopramide, and whereas they have very low efficacy in contents of efficacy. They have low efficacy means we might require higher dose compared to metoclopramide. So these are the difference between domperidone and metoclopramide. Please remember. So another group of drugs, serotonin antagonist. Serotonin 5-hydroxydopamine, two kinds of receptors, especially involved in case of emesis. Number one is 5-HT3 types and 4 types. 4 types are agonism of 4 types are done by metoclopramide. Whereas antagonist, there are 4 different groups of drugs, very important. Ondansetron, granisetron, dolasetron, and alonosetron. All cetrons. Please remember all cetrons. So ondansetron, granisetron, dolasetron, and alonosetron. All these drugs are specific 5-HT3 type of receptor antagonist. So we know that now 5-HT3 serotonin third type of receptor is present in chemoreceptor trigger zone, in a nucleus tractus solitarius, as well as in GI system. So they can act both centrally as well as peripherally. They are very excellent antiemetic, but is costly compared to metoclopramide. So mainly used now, you have to remember, mainly used drug is ondansetron. Ondansetron is widely used as 5-HT3 antagonist compared to all 3 drugs. So they are used to control the cancer chemotherapy induced vomiting. Since the chemotherapy that are involved in treatment of cancer has a since they are chemicals, they stimulate the chemoreceptor trigger zone and will result into vomiting. So prevent those vomitings, especially ondansetron are found to be much more useful by inhibiting or by antagonizing the 5-HT3 receptor present in both GI tract as well as in chemoreceptor triggers and neutral tractus solitarius. They are effective in post-operative nausea and vomiting, headache, and GI upset can occur with the use of these drugs, ondansetron, and they can be given orally or by IV infusion. All 4 drugs undergo extensive hepatic metabolism and are eliminated by renal and hepatic excretion. These are the basic pharmacokinetics. They undergo hepatic metabolism and they are eliminated by renal and hepatic excretion. So Ondan, Granny, and Dola, they are classified in one group, and Alanosetron is kept as another group because it is a bit different than these three drugs. Say, first three drugs they have comparable efficacy and tolerability when administered at equipotent dose. Whereas whereas Alanosetron is a newer IV agents. They cannot be given through. They are not given through oral. They are IV agents that has greater affinity for 5-HT3 receptors and long serum half life that is of 40 hours compared to all three groups like Ondan, Granny, and Dola. They have half life of only 4 to 9 hours. See the difference here. A superiority of palinocetrons. They are more specific to the. They are greater affinity. They can bind more strongly compared to all three drugs, and also have a strong, since they have good affinity with the receptor, their half life is up to 40 hours, and they are intravenous agents. So mechanism specific. Always remember, if any questions arise about the ondansetrons and granisetrons, then you should be specific about 5-HT3 receptors. They are 5-HT3 receptor antagonist. Central, we have 5-HT3 receptor blockage in vomiting centers and chemoreceptor trigger zone, whereas peripheral also 5-hydroxytryptamine, that is serotonin, third type of receptor is present in an intrinsic, that is extrinsic intestinal vagal and spinal afferent nerves, which contains 5-HT3 type of receptor that stimulates the nucleus tractus filtrage and vomiting center. So peripherally also they are block the 5-HT3 as well as in centrally in the vomiting center and chemoreceptor. This is the basic mechanism. So four groups, three groups have similar profile. They may be administered once daily by oral or IV routes, but Palonocetron is administered through IV route and they have greater affinity. These kinds of questions may be asked in your MCQs. Which of the following is more specific, has greater affinity among these four drugs, or which of the following is only given through IV route, and which of the following is a newer agent compared to all the three, four groups. In this way, a question could arise from this ondansetron and granisetron in this form. So please remember, ondansetron, granny, dola, palanocetrons, four drugs, among which Palano has a superiority among three drugs, being having high greater affinity with the receptor and having longer serum half-life. They are specific 5-HT3 type of receptor antagonism. We also know that serotonin 4 type of receptor agonism also is useful as an antiemetic, whereas antagonism to the 5 metoclopramide, they have non-specific mechanism of action. They inhibit all kinds of receptor, DT2, 5-HT3 antagonism, 5-HT4 agonism, whereas Ondan and Granny, Dola, Palo, no, they have specific 5-HT3 receptor antagonism properties. So be clear. So another group, antihistaminic. This drug has been already discussed during our first session in the first semester, isn't it? Antihistaminics first year. They two groups: first generation, second generation. First generation, inflammation, inflammatory response, hypersensitivity reaction, other different kinds of response, and S2 for acid secretion. Now, in case of GI system, H1 has an potential of producing emesis. So, nucleus, isn't it? They also have anti-muscarinic effect, that is anticholinergic effect. They are very effective in preventing motion sickness. That's why most of the antihistaminics are given in this for the treatment of motion sickness. Vestibular afferent inputs in vomiting center, which are H1 and muscarinic receptor. Please recall that figure from the inner earlobe. There was the stimulation of cerebellum to M1 and H1 receptors. So giving antihistaminics, especially they are antagonizes the both. They have the property of H1 antihistaminics as well as anti-muscarinic. Anti-muscarinic means M1 antagonistic effect. That's why can be they are specific. They are given specifically to prevent the motion sickness. Promethazine commonly used. Cyclizine in case of motion sickness, meclizine motion sickness and other vestibular disorders. Do not use in morning sickness, shown to be teratogenic. So they are not given in case of morning sickness. So always remember, in case of motion sickness, we always go for antihistaminics. It is a best drug to treat the motion sickness. 30 minutes before the traveling, take the promethazine, then go to the vehicles, bus or train, whichever you are going to travel. Then after 30 minutes, number one, they antagonize the H1 effect. Number two, they antagonize the muscarinic effect and produces sedation. So they, in two ways, they are very much helpful for prevention of motion sickness. The anticholinergic, hyoscine, muscarinic antagonist. Please recall the hyoscine, scopolamine, anticholinergic. They block the conduction of nerve impulses across the cholinergic link in the pathway leading from the vestibular apparatus to vomiting center. This is the basic mechanism, same as of antihistaminics. Same as of antihistaminics. They also inhibit the muscarinic stimulation from the vestibular apparatus to the vomiting center and will prevent the motion sickness. Active against the vomiting of labyrinthine origin and vomiting due to the local stimuli in the stomach. So ineffective against the substance which acts directly on the CTZ, because they do not CTZ do not have very less M1 receptors. That's why they are very much ineffective in those cases. Have seen most potent for the prevention of motion sickness and less useful once sickness occurs, because once that it has been stimulated, blocking would not be effective. Blocking of the muscarinic receptor is not effective. So before before the sickness starts, the drug should be given. So adverse effect, all the anticholinergic effects like dry mouth, blurring of vision, dumbbell. Do you remember dumbbell, anticholinergic and anticholinergic? So dry mouth, blurring of vision, retention of urine, sedation, and other different kinds of anticholinergic side effects are seen by the use of hyoscine. Another is prochlorperazine, phenothiazines. These are also called neuroleptics, since they are used in case of psychosis during our central nervous system class. As a treatment of psychosis, we will be again discussing about these drugs in the treatment of psychosis. They are neuroleptics, since they are potent anti-emetic due to the D2 antagonism, and D2 antagonism also is useful for the treatment of psychosis. By blocking the D2 receptor, it is very much helpful for treatment of psychosis, and as a side effect, they produces anti-emetic effect, and they can be also they are also kept as an anti-emetic drugs. They are generally neuroleptics used for the treatment of psychosis. So they act by blocking D2 receptor in the state, as they also block D2 receptor other the brain causing extrapyramidal effect like metoclopramide. See, blocking of receptor will produce the extrapyramidal effects like Parkinsonism like effect, which is also shown by the use of neuroleptics. Sometimes they may ask a question about write a short notes and neuroleptics. Then you need to remember they are phenothiazines, haloperidol, chlorperazine, and chlorperazine. These are three drugs. So chlorperazine is mainly used drug active against the agents directly stimulating CTZ. Anti-emetic dose generally much lower than antipsychotic drug. This is the difference between anti-emetic and antipsychotic drugs of neuroleptic. As an anti-emetic, the dose is much lower than compared to antipsychotic. So indications, see the indications of this drug in case of anti-emetic only. Okay, I will discuss, because as an antipsychotic we will be later discussing. But in case of anti-emetic, they are given in case of drug-induced and post-anesthetic nausea and vomiting, disease-induced vomiting like gastroenteritis, uremia, liver disease, migraine, and etc. There are other different diseases which also induces vomiting. In this case also, these drugs are very much useful, and cancer chemotherapy induced vomiting, whereas they are very less effective in radiation sickness vomiting and should not be used in morning sickness except in hyperemesis gravidum. They are generally contraindicated or they are not given in those conditions. So we have latest development, a newer drug that is called NK, neurokinin 1 receptor. And as we know that CTZ also contains neurokinin receptor, and stimulation of those receptor by the stimuli or agonist will result into stimulation of vomiting center. So prevention or antagonist to those neurokinin center is also useful or found to be useful in case of preventing vomiting. So aprepitant, please remember aprepitant is a drug generally used for in this case. So the oral viability is 65% and half-life is about 12 hours. Aprepitant is metabolized in liver by cytochrome P450A, 3A4, Clinical use in not given, generally not given in single dose. They are given in combination with 5-HT3 receptor antagonist and corticosteroids for the prevention of acute and delayed nausea and vomiting from highly immunogenic chemotherapeutic regimen. This is the basic use of neurokinin 1 receptor antagonist aprepitant. They are always given in combination to prevent the nausea and vomiting for the chemotherapy induced vomiting. This is the use of aprepitant. So aprepitant may be associated with fatigue, dizziness, and diarrhea. Three different important adverse effects associated with aprepitant is fatigue, dizziness, and diarrhea. The drug is metabolized by 3A4. Another one, adjuvant. Under adjuvant, we have miscellaneous antiemetic, benzodiazepines, lorazepam, and alprazolam. They are sedative hypnotics. We'll be again discussing this drug in the central nervous system as an as a sedative and hypnotic, since they result into sedation. As now we know that sedation is useful for prevention of emesis. So benzodiazepines are being anti sedatives and hypnotic. They result into sedation, can be used in case of emesis. So antiemetic effect is very low. Beneficial effects is due to their sedative, anxiolytic, and amnesic property. So they are useful in treating anticipatory vomiting. They are used as an adjuvant drug, not first line drug, and they are used in combination with metoclopramide and ondansetron. So if you combine benzodiazepine with this drug, then they would rather be very useful if rather than giving in a single form or single dose. They, if you give benzodiazepine given only given to treat the emesis may not be useful, but if they are given in combination with other antiemetic drugs, then it would be very much beneficial. So another is corticosteroids. As an adjuvant, corticosteroids, dexamethasone and methylprednisolone have found to be useful and antiemetic property. The antiemetic property, but the basis of this effect is still not known how it does. It is found that they enhance the efficacy of high-dose for prevention of acute and delayed nausea vomiting in patients receiving moderately to highly immunogenic chemotherapy regimen. So dexamethasone generally given 8 to 20 mg intravenously before chemotherapy, followed by 8 mg per day orally for 2 to 4 days. This is the basic use of corticosteroids. So they are highly effective in combination with ondansetron, and generally adjuvant drugs are not given in single form or single dose. They are generally given in combination with other antiemetics to facilitate the antiemetics. So another one is cannabinoids. Cannabinoids, synthetic cannabinoids, dronabinol. Like fruit marijuana, dronabinol is a psychoactive agent that is used medically as an appetite stimulant and as an antiemetics. Mechanism of these effects are not understood because of the, now see here why they are not used, because number one, the cannabinoids compounds are abused a lot and they are not given being abusive drug, they are not prescribed. And number second, because of the availability of more effective agent, this drug is now not commonly used for the prevention of chemotherapy induced nausea and pain, because we have better and more safer drug, and not with the, we also have drugs which are not psychoactive. They have been replaced nowadays. So combination therapy with phenothiazines, that is neuroleptic, provides synergistic anti-emetic action. Nabilone is a closely related THC, tetrahydrocannabinol analog that has been available in other countries and is approved for the use in the USA. These are the other adjuvant drugs. So let me summarize. Therapy of vomiting, motion sickness, basically we go for antihistaminics and anticholinergics, because vestibular apparatus has two types of receptors that stimulate the vomiting center, H1 and M1. So basically our drug which are antagonists to the H1 and M1, basically first generation antihistaminic, they have a sedative property by inhibiting M1 and also has an antihistaminic by inhibiting M1. That's why they are much more useful in case of motion sickness. Whereas in case of morning sickness, advised to take frequent meals and fruit, avoid drugs, go for psychotherapy. This is the basic approach we need to do, because during the pregnancy, we should not take drug without prescription or without consultation. So if severely nauseated, pyridoxine, that is vitamin B6 and promethazine, cyclizine or metoclopramide can be given in case of morning sickness. In case of chemotherapy induced Dexamethasone plus ondansetron, metoclopramide before chemotherapy is the best drug given, whereas gastric-induced vomiting, metoclopramide and domperidone are generally given. Thank you. So, any questions? If anybody has any questions, because it's a very short topic. No, sir. No questions?
Sir,
So, at the summary,
sir, one question, sir.
anything?
Sir, if domperidone not cross blood-brain barrier, then how they act, sir, centrally?
Because chemoreceptor trigger zone is out of the, you know that chemoreceptor trigger zone, they are out of the blood-brain barrier. Whatever drug that does is not lipid soluble and do not cross its blood-brain barrier may or have a tendency of side effect called nausea and vomiting. That's why you people write everywhere nausea and vomiting, except in case of antiemetic drug. Okay, please remember.
Okay, thank you.
Thing is that
Okay,
chemoreceptor trigger zone is not protected by the blood-brain barrier.
thank you, sir.
So either the drug is lipid soluble or lipid insoluble. It has a tendency to stimulate the chemoreceptor trigger zone and produce nausea and vomiting. Please always remember, chemoreceptor trigger zone is not protected by the blood-brain barrier. Okay. Anything else?
No, sir.
You will just go through the books. Everything I have kept from your almost from the KD Tripathi and other two, three different books. Just go through your book. Try to understand the mechanisms and pharmacotherapy of emetics and as an antiemetic. Then, if you do not anything, I am again available to discuss with you.